Hello everyone, welcome to another Narc Survivor live video. In this one, as you can see, I'm at the beach. I've just been playing in the water. As I said I was going to do, I said that I would be traveling to an island and doing some videos by the beach. So here I am, like how it was in Bali, back on the beach again. Only this time I've got shorter hair. Had a haircut since then. But yeah, in this one I've got a very interesting topic for you. How the narcissist reacts to their defeat. Because let's keep it real, I mean, the entire time, what are they doing? They're fighting with you. They're fighting with your perceptions of them, of how you're seeing them, because you're holding them up to this false character that they explain to you. It's like they're trying to showcase a product. They're trying to sell it to you. And you're like, all right, I'm investing my time into this. You want me to invest my money, my resources? So let's see what this thing can do. Show me what it's capable of. But they're never doing anything. They're just giving you lies and future faking. They're holding you off. They're giving you false promises about the future, but you're not seeing anything in the present. And it just leaves you waiting and holding on. Well, you're showing up. You're investing into them. You're giving them all of your time, energy, attention, and possibly money and resources as well. You're giving them everything they want from you. And it's not like you're promoting yourself to them. You're actually being that for real. While with you, they're just showcasing a product. They're just promoting themselves. And you're not actually seeing anything in the present. They're just holding you off, as narcissists do. Because they're exploitative. They lack empathy and they're self-absorbed. They're just all about themselves. And so they see it as a benefit to be engaged with you. But only to a certain extent. They have to keep you at arm's length. They have to maintain a certain amount of distance from you, because if you get too close, you're going to see what's under that mask. And then you're going to pull away. You're going to stop investing in them. And they know that. And that's why they act in that way. Because otherwise the entire illusion falls apart. As many of you may have seen already, if you've been around them long enough, what do? They turn against you. They devalue you. You start to see that monster underneath the mask. Now that isn't anything pretty. And that's when you do then begin to pull away. You do begin to stop investing your time, energy, attention, money and resources, which is what they were afraid of. And that's why they then go to turn it against you and devaluing you in an attempt to maintain some sort of power over you, to keep you stuck, to keep you trapped. Because at that point, they figure that is the only thing they can do. But you're not falling for the mask anymore. You're not going to wait around. You're not going to fall for their future faking. So then they try and get you to stay where you are by dominating and controlling you instead. But up until that point, they will give you all of the excuses. They will try every trick in the book. They will do it all. They'll do anything to make you believe that they are genuine and that the mask is real. They will say anything, they will do anything other than actually be that. Because they can't be that. That isn't them. The real person is very angry, miserable, depressed. And that's the only reason why they're around you. That's why they target you. Because you're full of life and energy, enthusiasm. You're a genuinely happy, positive, optimistic person. And that's what they want from you. The problem is that if they get too close to you, then it becomes more of an equal exchange. And they're only around you to rob you of your happiness and contentment. They can't share any happiness with you. They haven't got any. If they did have any, they wouldn't even target you in the first place. They wouldn't even bother. They wouldn't need anyone. But they do. That's why they need a source of supply to prop up this illusion, to prop up this false self, to validate it. Because it's not self-validating. It isn't real. So they'll give you all of the excuses. They'll try every trick of the book, whatever they think will work on you, whatever they think will get your attention. And that's a key point of this, is getting your attention, getting you to attend to pay attention, to invest this currency that we call attention into this facade, to give it power, to give it energy, to validate it, to keep it going. But even at the other side of the facade, which is the angry person that they display to you, because really deep down it's actually just shame, but they get angry. They act like they're your parent. They dominate and control you. That's another way to get you to submit, to control you. Another way to get you to keep giving your attention to them so that they can feel powerful and important. But what happens when you've cornered them? What happens when you've covered all bases and there's nowhere for them to go? They can't run away from you anymore and you've got them right where you want them. What happens then? When you're no longer falling for the mask, when you're no longer willing to be controlled, dominated, pushed around, what happens then is that in many situations, they'll just ghost you. They'll just disappear. They'll give you the silent treatment. You won't even see or hear from them anymore. Because you're no longer giving them that power. They've got to have the power from you to validate this mask so that they can feel attractive or desirable, so that they can get that supply from you. Or they have to be able to dominate you, devalue you, make you feel like you're bad or that something is wrong with you. They have to project their feelings of inadequacy onto you so that they can feel powerful and in control, rather than feeling intimidated and secure in your presence. So initially they'll try and get you to validate the mark, but then when that stops working, then they dominate you, they devalue you. So at least they can feel powerful around you instead of feeling powerless and helpless and out of control. So again, what happens is when you no longer fall for excuses, when you're on all bases, you've cornered them, you've got them right where you want them. There's nowhere for them to go. Typically, they will just ghost you, they'll be gone. You won't hear from them ever again. In many situations, because you're no longer giving them that validation, that power and control. You're no longer giving them the power. And typically what happens is, once they're no longer getting that fuel, that supply for their fake self-image, it goes away. Once you stop believing in it, once you stop reacting to it, giving it your validation, it fades away. It's gone. Unless they can find someone else who will believe in it. If they've got other people around who will validate it, then they'll still use it. As long as it's getting validation, attention, as long as people are responding, attending to it. And especially if they're surrounded by neighbours and flying monkeys, then that false image is going to be very strong even without your supply. Because they've got all of these other people who still believe in it. But when they're on their own, when they're cornered, they can't keep it going because it isn't real. And that's how sometimes you will see their self-image just shift overnight. Overnight, they become a completely different person. They just change rapidly and suddenly. And it's like you don't even know who they are anymore. It's like one moment you thought you knew exactly who you were dealing with. You thought this person was with you, they were on your side, they were there for you, they cared about you, they loved you, they wanted a relationship, they wanted someone with you. You thought that. And then instantly, overnight, they become something completely different. It's like you don't even know who they are anymore. And then maybe then they're off with someone else who's like a completely different person than what you thought they'd be about. And what they told you they were into. And that's because it can shift. It's not because that was the real person underneath the entire time, as many of you misconceive. It's not because what you're seeing now is the real person. Even though, yes, you know, they may be very reckless, very impulsive. They may be drinking alcohol, using recreational drugs. They may be gambling, they may be doing all sorts of things. But it's not so much that that's the real person, although underneath it all, they don't have any true core values or morals. But they can shapeshift, they're chameleons, they can be anything in any moment. They can be something with you and something completely different with someone else, all dependent on the energy, the validation that's coming to them. And that's how they tend to shift along with societal trends. Like you see with narcissists on TikTok, whatever's trending on TikTok, they just become that overnight. Or they just abandon whatever they're doing before for the attention. Because they have no true core values or morals. It's just whatever gets them what they want. Whatever gets them that supply. Or sometimes money and resources as well. They won't do anything. If there's an opportunity there for them to gain something, for them to come up, they will drop anything and anyone and they will just go for it. They will abandon anything. Just as they abandoned you. And they will abandon this next person as well for something else if they see it as though the grass is greener on the other side. They're chameleons, they're shapeshifters. They're loyal to no one. And that's just how it is. They have no true core self-image, no true identity. And that's how you don't see any stability, any consistency over time. If a person's self-image or identity is real, you're going to see that over time. They're going to remain consistent. And there's going to be growth. There's going to be consistent development. You don't see that with narcissists. They just shapeshift. They become whatever they need to be to get the supply, to get the attention. And it's never generated from within. It's never something that they're truly passionate or enthusiastic about themselves. And that's how they just fall off so easily. Because there's no genuine interest, enthusiasm or concern coming from within. As an example with myself, I mean, of course, I wasn't always Narc Survivor. I've been doing now, researching about this for about 7 years. I've been doing these videos for about 6.5 years. And of course, before I was researching about this, before I was making these videos, I wasn't Narc Survivor. And I talked about my past and what I was doing back then. I mean, I didn't really have much going on, in all honesty. I went through a difficult time. I broke up with my ex, who I was really in love with. He was highly narcissistic. And I didn't really have much going on in my life at that time. I was just playing Xbox most nights. I had a few cans every week. I had my cat Nala for about a year before I made the channel. I would just go and sit at the beach sometimes and go to the gym most days. But other than that, I really didn't have much going on. Although I always had this long-term interest in psychology and human behavior. And yeah, you can see on my channel with my work, you can see that gradual development, that gradual growth over time, over many months and then many years, until I became the person that you see today. And as I've spoken about before that, I mean, I was involved in all sorts of things, negative things that I shouldn't have been doing. I was drinking often. Sometimes I was using drugs. I was smoking weed. And I didn't really have much going for me in my life at that time. I didn't have a steady job. I didn't have anything. And, you know, I had no purpose. It's just the skirt of my life. My life just revolved around it. And then when she left me, then I started to sit down. I started to focus. I found out about narcissistic abuse and I started researching about it. Gradually, I began to learn more. And then someone suggested to me to start making videos on YouTube. I wasn't sure about it at the time, but I gave it a go. Someone believed in me. So I felt like maybe I could do this. And of course, it took a lot of work. But here I am now, 7 years later. So it's a journey, you know, it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, a lot of going within, self-reflection to heal and to be able to regulate ourselves and to develop that confidence, that true confidence from within, instead of just acting and pretending to be something we're not. And that's what I had to do. It took so much time for me. However, I always had this kind of personality underneath it all, underneath all of the layers of abuse that I had to experience. I was always very empathic, very compassionate for people. So that was always me. But yeah, with a narcissist, I mean, once you finally defeated them, you've cornered them, you've covered all bases, they're just going to give up. They're going to abandon ship. They're just going to jump off. They're not going to stay on it. They're not going to go down with it. They will abandon ship. They will abandon you. They will abandon this false identity and anything that goes along with it. And that's a key part of this video of why they abandoned you. Because think about it. If their identity was true and real, you're meant to be associated with that. You're meant to be a part of this identity because they shared that side of them with you. So in order for them to maintain it, you would still have to be there. But they abandoned you because what happens is when they abandon that false identity, you have to go with it. Everything goes with it, and then they can start new with someone else. With someone who will continue to validate it, or they will just completely just get a new identity somewhere else. Because they're not really passionate or enthusiastic about it. And this is why when you challenge or confront them, you don't get a response. In some cases, you might get a response from an overt narcissist. But even then, with the overt narcissist, their identity is tied to things. It may not always be people, but it may be their wealth, their power, their possessions. And typically, if something happens to them, if they get discredited, exposed, then their confidence goes with all of that. Whatever image that they were presenting, to be someone who cares about the community, whatever it is, all of that goes with the money, the wealth, the possessions, it all goes with it. Because it's not real, it's not genuine. They're not going to stick in with it. They're not going to keep going. Because they've got to have that supply. They've got to get that validation from people. They're not just going to keep going on their own because there's nothing being generated from within. They've got to have external feedback. I mean, keep in mind, it's the case with everyone, with any person. I mean, if they haven't got any support and they're on their own, they're isolated, and they've got no external validation, they've got no one to keep them going, no one motivating them. They can keep it going for a certain amount of time, but at some point they are going to burn out. Doesn't matter who it is. And Dr. Ramani mentioned that in one of her videos. I remember, if a person has no empathy coming in, eventually there's going to be no empathy going out. And that's just how it is. But with narcissists, it's much faster. It's much more extreme. I mean, this is going to be immediate. You will see this instantly, overnight. A sudden shift, a sudden change. They will just suddenly drop you, abandon you, like you never existed. That's not healthy. That's not normal. That shouldn't happen with anyone. But it happens with narcissists. They'll act like they're fully invested into you. They're really serious about it, about progressing with you, giving you the lies, the future faking, the promises for the future. And then all of a sudden they just fall off. They drop you. That's very unhealthy. It's very toxic. It's not normal human behavior. But it's what we see from narcissists because they're constantly in survival mode. They're just trying to stay afloat. They're using anyone and everyone. to uplift this false image, to keep it going. And that's why they're so self-absorbed. Because they have no self from within to generate it, to uplift it, to uphold it. 145 live viewers, give it a thumbs up if you find it as helpful so far. I'm live on the beach here. But yeah, this is what happens, you know. You start to see a very different side of them when you no longer believe in them. When you stop validating the illusion, suddenly they shift. They become something completely different. The mask comes off. You see how angry, how miserable, how resentful they are underneath it all. They start to treat you horribly. They just treat you like you never meant anything to them, like you're just nothing significant. Because that's who they really are underneath it all. There's someone who has no core values or morals. There's no loyalty with them, no devotion. They will go wherever they're going to get the most supply. And you're never going to be able to compete with the abundance of supply that they can get from people. Why would they settle for you? Why would they settle for little old you? And the small amount of attention that you can give when there's an abundance of attention for them on social media and from all of their enablers and flying monkeys. But also when you start to see through them, you're investing everything into them. There's no reciprocation. You get nothing back. At some point, you're going to stop going along with it. And so the best solution for them is to turn against you and to get everyone to turn against you. And the worst decision they could make for their false self is to keep it going with you. Well, you're starting to see through the mask. And then they're just going to be exposed to everyone. And they would just be sacrificing their false self. Because you're no longer validating it at that point. You're no longer believing in it. You're starting to see that there is something else underneath that mask. So when you've defeated the narcissist, when you've cornered them, when you've covered all bases, they're going to back down. They're going to withdraw within themselves. They're going to take it somewhere else, someone who actually will validate it, or they'll become something completely different for someone else. And often, whatever they display to you, whatever you thought you were seeing from them, they can become something completely different somewhere else. Because what you're seeing from them at the beginning, that's never who they really are. That's just the lure. It's the bait. It's designed only to get your attention. And of course, if you don't know much about narcissism, you may wonder, then why do they want your attention? Because normally, of course, if someone wants your attention, it's so that they can do or give or provide something for you. Share something, build something with you. So that they can lead you. I mean, that's normally what it's for. But with narcissists, that's all they want is the attention. It doesn't go any further. It doesn't go any deeper than that. You give them your attention and then they cut it off. Then it stops. Once you stop giving them attention, it's all over. And just because you're giving them attention, it doesn't mean you get anything either. Narcissists don't reciprocate anything back. That's the whole point of why they need your attention, of why they need supply. If they had anything to give to you, they would be giving that to themselves. They would just keep it going on their own. They have nothing to reciprocate. They have nothing to give back. They've got to get that from you. Everything they're getting from you is what they can't give to you or give to themselves. Your attention, your energy, your enthusiasm, your positivity, your optimism. your brightness, your vitality, your power, your energy, all of these things that they're getting from you. They can't give that back to you. That's why they're getting it from you. And that's why they need your attention. They need you to attend to them, to pay your attention, to invest it into them. It's a form of currency that keeps them going. So this is what they do. This is what happens. Because they lack character, they lack integrity, they're not going to stand for nothing. They're not going to fight for what they profess that they believe in because they don't believe in anything. They have no backbone, no character. So they're not going to stand behind it, behind what they presented to you of who they're supposed to be. They're not going to stand behind that. They're not going to go down with it just because you're invalidating it, just because you're putting pressure on it. They'll just abandon it. They'll get rid of it. They'll become something else and try and get validation that way. Because that wasn't really them to begin with. I mean, that's really it. When you're pressuring someone, another important point to take note of, when you're pressuring someone, when you've got them cornered, when you covered all bases, that's when you're going to start to see what is at the core of that person. You see the core of someone when they are under pressure or stress. I mean, sometimes, yes, people can act in very strange ways when they are pressured. They can act in ways that are out of character. Underneath it all, once you strip it all away, you will see some level of core values there. Underneath everything, you are going to see some core beliefs of what that person truly values and believes in. We don't see that with narcissists. We don't see any positive characteristics, any values, morals, beliefs or principles. You don't see any of it. They're chameleons, they're shapeshifters. There is no loyalty, no devotion, no character, no integrity, no backbone, because they don't believe in anything. What they do believe in is self-serving. They just believe that you should just give everything to them. Just give all of your attention, all of your money, your resources. That's what they believe in. And that's why that's exactly what you see at the end of it. They become very arrogant, very entitled, demanding, very selfish, very egocentric, where it's just all about them getting as much as they can from you while giving back as little as possible in return. Because that is what is at the core of them. And I know it can be very disappointing. It's a very dissatisfying ending. Because it's like, what, is that it? That's the end of it? Well, that's it. What you see at the end, that's what you get. You see the real them. At the end, you see the real person. The real person who really has nothing. Empty vessels. Make the most noise. Because that's all that they are. They're just an empty shell of a person. They died a long time ago. And the only reason it seemed like there was something there is because you were validating it. It's like they were on stage and you were giving them the applause. You were crediting them. It's like you were putting another coin in the machine. You were keeping it going. Or like one of those wind-up toys. You were pulling the string. And then it became animated. Exact same thing with a narcissist. You're just pulling the string on the narcissist. And then it brings it to life. Or you put another coin in the machine. But once you stop putting the coins in, and once you stop pulling the string, it just stops. And especially after you've invested into them. You've invested your time, your energy, your attention, possibly money and resources as well. They know that all these things have value. They know that they're indebted to you and they can't repay you. Because all they've got is a false character they need from you. They're not targeting you to bring anything to you. And typically, it's like if you loaned a narcissist a lot of money, you just won't see them again. They disappear. Because they know they can't pay you back. And it doesn't always mean financially. They can't pay you back that same amount of attention, love, care, empathy, compassion, because they just haven't got it. And they haven't got it because no one ever cared about them. They were unloved, and that is why now they feel unlovable. They use a false character to manipulate you because their emotional needs were not met as children. And that's what this comes down to. That's why they operate with a false character. They manipulate to deceive you, to get that attention and admiration from you that they can never get as a child, and that they cannot give to themselves. Because there is nothing that they can generate from within. They've got to get that from you. They need a source of supply. Yeah, what you see underneath that mask, it's not a pretty sight. It's the opposite of everything you thought they were. They show you the opposites of everything they led you to believe that they were. Because that's who they really are. That's where you see the exact opposite. Because they're pretending to be something they're not. And they know that who they are is not what you want to see. It's not desirable. So they become the opposite of who they are in an attempt to manipulate you, to get your attention. And then they withdraw on that. They abandon it. And then you start to see who they really are, which is not what you want. But they put that on you. They hold you accountable for it. They get you to feel bad as though there's something wrong with you. Because that way they can still feel powerful. But it's crazy because when you think about it, essentially, they're revealing that they are very broken, insecure people. And then they're making that your problem. They're making you feel like that's your fault. If they can't uphold any sort of integrity, character, morals or values in your presence, then in their minds that's your fault. Well, I can tell you, if that was how it is, I wouldn't be making these videos after all of these years. I would have given it up a long time ago. Because the amount of times I've had people working against me, sabotaging me, ruining my business, my reputation, everything. And I still keep it going. Even though all this time I've had very little support. Compared to what I'm putting out, I get practically nothing in return. And I still keep it going. Because I have a true character. I have a true self. And that's what keeps it going. That's why even with all of the distractions, all of the chaos, there's something that I have deep inside of me that keeps it going no matter what. And that's something that no one can take away. You don't get that with narcissists. The more that you pressure them, the more that you come down on them like a ton of bricks, the more they're going to turn away. The more they're going to resist. The more they're going to distance themselves from you. Because that's just it. They don't want you to realize that there is nothing there. They don't want you to realize that they haven't got anything. And I think that's why they become so angry. When you start to see the narcissist switch up on you, they're no longer that nice, kind character, and instead they become very angry, very dominant and controlling. They're still trying to control you. They're still trying to manage your perception. because there's something else that they don't want you to see. Even after you've seen through that nice, kind character, they become very dominant and controlling, very aggressive, because there's something else that they don't want you to see. And that's that there is nothing. There is nothing other than, in some cases, maybe just an underdeveloped child who's very scared and afraid, very vulnerable, and doesn't know what to do. And that's what they don't want you to see, because that's who they were a long time ago in their childhood. That's where they left themselves off when they were neglected or abused, when they were not given the love and attention that they deserved. And that's why they don't want you to see that side of them. That's why they become so angry then, so dominant, because they fear that you're just going to do it to them again. You're just going to reject them, you're going to abandon them, and that's just it. I mean, what else can you do? What else can you do if you do see that? If you do see that scared, vulnerable child, I mean, it's not your responsibility to take care of them. It's not your job to nurture them. Now, they know that it's a huge weight on you. It's a huge responsibility for you to have to do that. For you to have to take care of this big baby for the rest of your life. For someone who can't even just stand on their own 2 feet. And that's why they become so angry, so aggressive towards you. Because they know that if they were to show that side of themselves to you, that big baby in an adult body, they know that you're just going to run away from it. They know that you're just not going to want to take that on. And that's why they do everything to not show that side of themselves to you. And instead they act independent. They act like they're the parents. They act like they're the ones in charge of you. Because if you were the one in control, if you were the one on them, telling them what to do, they wouldn't be able to do it. They would just fall apart. And that's what this comes down to. That's why they typically ghost you, or they smear you and they get everyone to turn against you. And just to destabilize you and make it out that something's wrong with you. As though you're just a child who can't take care of yourself. Even though you had it all together until you got involved with them. But that's why they try and reverse this role on you. And that's why they despise your independence, your autonomy. They despise your individuality, yourself. Because that's one thing they don't have. They never developed the self. They skipped that part in childhood. They just pretended to be something. Well, as for us, we actually went through it. We felt all of the pain. We went through all of the struggles. We had to go through all of that to become who we are today. They skipped all of that. They didn't feel it. They just became something else. And that's why many of them, they just ghost you at that point. They just disappear. Because they already know, ain't no way you're going to take care of them. You're not going to look after them. You're not going to be their babysitter, their caretaker. They know that the only reason you stuck in it, the only reason you stay that long is because you assumed, as they led you to believe, that there was going to be some reciprocation. You only invested all of that into them because you thought you were going to get something back. You thought you had something you were going to build and grow with. And they know that. That's why they continue with the lies, the false promises, the future faking, the excuses. Because they know that's the only reason why you're there is because, and rightfully so. I mean, every relationship, it should be equal. It should be mutual. That's the only way that we can grow. Otherwise, they're just breaking you down. They're just destroying you. So that's why they then ghost you, or they go to the smearing because they know you've had enough. You're not going to take care of them. You're not going to be their babysitter, their caretaker. They know you're not going to take on that role. So that's why they become so angry, so aggressive. And that's why they become so bitter and resentful. Because they're looking at you like you're their parent, like you're meant to take care of them. Like you're the one who failed them in their childhood, subconsciously. They're seeing it as though you're the one who let them down. You're the one who didn't fulfill their emotional needs. So they're expecting you to continue where their parent left off. Only this time, being their emotional caretaker and maybe providing for them financially for life. That's what they're expecting you to do. And if you don't do that, then they sabotage you, they smear you, and they try and make it out to everyone that you're just this helpless child who can't take care of yourself. They switch the role around on you. When no, you were doing perfectly fine before you got involved with them. You were taking very good care of yourself. You had that emotional stability. You were regulated. You had your self-esteem. They targeted all of that. They broke it all down. They tried to make you feel insecure. They tried to get you fired from your job. They targeted you financially. They smeared you. They did all of that. Because they wanted to be you rather than them. They do not want to be seen. They'd rather you see them as this angry, vicious monster than to see them as a scared, broken, helpless, vulnerable little child, which is who they really are. That's who they really are underneath it all. That's it. And that's why they become the predator. That's why they exploit you, because they know that no one is going to take on that role. No one's just going to take care of them for the rest of their lives. Knowing that they're never going to get anything back. No reciprocation emotionally, psychologically, financially, in any sort of way. No one's going to do that. Only if they're being manipulated. They're being deceived. That's the only way that it's going to work for them. And that's why they rely so heavily on manipulation. And when that doesn't work, they become dominating, controlling. They coerce you. They use threats. It's all just to force you to be their parent, their caretaker. And it's all because they fail to take care of themselves. Because many of us, we may not have had our emotional needs fulfilled in childhood, but somehow we still mustered up the courage and the emotional strength to keep going. And many of us now that we're aware, we're working on our childhood wounds. Anytime that we feel triggered, we feel hurt, instead of blaming someone else, we self-reflect. We go within and we question, why does this hurt? Why am I affected by this? And of course, in some situations, it may have very little to do with childhood trauma, because if you're being abused, you're being exploited, it's just not acceptable. They're crossing boundaries with you. So regardless of if you're healed, and that's just it. If you are healed, if you do practice self-love, if you do have high self-esteem, that's going to trigger you even more. Not less, more. When someone crosses your boundaries, when someone purposely triggers you, it's going to affect you more. But as for narcissists, they're just triggered. They're just that way anyway. You don't have to do anything. They already act that way. Because they're very unstable emotionally, psychologically. They just can't keep it together. But yeah, this is how they react when you've cornered them, when you've covered all bases. They get very angry. And if you don't give in to their anger, their threats, their intimidation, then they ghost you. If they can't force you into that role, they just disappear. Because you're not validating it. You're not giving it fuel for them to keep it going. And if you don't keep it going, when they're angry and they're giving you threats and intimidation, then what happens is they just fall back onto what may be some sort of true self, the underdeveloped child who's actually very scared, very vulnerable. And it's actually very jealous, possessive, and controlling because they need that supply in order for them to keep this mask up of being this dictator, this ruler over you. "131 live viewers, give it a thumbs up if you found this video helpful so far. 45 minutes. Giving you a solid description of what happens, how they respond to their defeat. You won't get such an in-depth description anywhere else. No one else will give it to you this raw. I mean, yes, there's many good channels out there, of course. But when it comes to giving it raw and unscripted, 45 minutes live on video. And every word of what I said is the absolute truth. It's real. And you can do your own research. You can watch other videos on YouTube. You can research it on Google. You can ask ChatGPT. You're going to get the same responses, only on here, of course, you get it more with a human touch. And it's more relatable. I'm giving you analogies. I'm giving you real, personal human experiences. And so, you know, it's much better to get this information from a real person who's actually been through it for real, rather than just a robot, AI. Although, of course, AI does have its uses as well. And, you know, I use AI sometimes myself when I'm making my videos. Not so much because I don't already know the answers, but because, you know, they already give an informative list, which makes it much easier for me to work through, because sometimes I do leave some things out. But AI really does cover pretty much everything. Sharing this moment with you, live on this beach. We've got white sand, the green ocean. The sun is shining. All we need now is a Narc Survivor meetup. Here we can sit on the sand, have a little fire, toast marshmallows, vegan marshmallows, of course. And we could just talk all night about life, relationships, narcissists. That's what we need to do one day. A Narc Survivor meetup. All of us survivors together. As you can see, I'm just out here. I'm just enjoying the beach. I went in the sea for a little bit. I swam down and back. As you know, I do like my beaches. As many of you may know, I'm actually from Swansea in Wales, which is a very famous place for beaches. We have the Gower Peninsula, one of the most famous coastal areas in the world, and one of the largest indoor seafood markets in Europe. I'm not into seafood myself. I am a vegan. For those of you who like seafood, Wales is very famous for that, especially my city, Swansea. But yeah, we're known for our beaches there. And that's how early on my Instagram and in my early videos, make sure a lot of beach videos. But it's quite cold, so I don't normally swim there. But I used to as a child, you know. Growing up, we stayed by the beach, so I would spend a lot of time just walking on the beach, swimming in the sea. How's everyone doing in the live chat then? Let's see. I'm not seeing any moderators in here. Hopefully it's been a tame chat. Regine Benjamin says it's beautiful there, Christopher. Glad you like it, Regine. Eddie Wynn says, nice beach. I'm under blankets with my cats. We've got some cats here as well somewhere. I saw some cats here. Oh, there's one, a kitten. It's funny, these cats like to come on the beach. I tried to put Darla on the beach a few times, she didn't like it. And actually one time in Malaysia, she went missing for a few hours. Robert Savagano says, irony, I was just living on the islands of GA with a narcissist. Now separated and I'm back up north to Chicago. Oh, I know what that's like. I mean, that can be the worst, you know. It's one thing to be in a relationship with a narcissist, but when you've got the scenery, the experiences to go with it, such as if you're spending time on the islands with a narcissist, and you've got all of those memories, and then when they leave, you're just left to reminisce on all of that. It really just intensifies the trauma bond. It really does. But it's one thing if you're just like, you're just living in a town or a city in a house or an narcissist, and there's not much to do there. But when you're traveling around islands and stuff, and you've got all of those memories and experiences together, it just intensifies that love bombing phase. And then when they devalue you, it makes that cognitive dissonance really hard to break. You've got to remember, I mean, even the islands, the vacations, all of that, that's all just supply. It's all just a part of their false image. Tara N. Clark says, can narcissists change their ways to become a better person in life? Or is it hopeless for them? I do believe people can change from being evil to doing good. For most narcissists, it's never going to happen. They're always going to have the false self. It's always going to require narcissistic supply. And they're never going to change, even when they do appear to become more covert or vulnerable. That's just another part of the facade, playing the victim. It's just more manipulation. So the likelihood is that they are never going to change. I mean, it's in extremely rare cases that they do become self-aware. And even then, they've got to have some incentive to want to change. I mean, it's like with anything, even with us. If we're going to change anything about ourselves, for what? Where's the incentive for us to do that? And unlike with us, we have compassion for people. We want to help them. With a narcissist, it's just all about themselves. So it's just going to validate their grandiose self-image. That's the only incentive. And then once they become more grandiose, they go back to how they were before. It's a bit sunny here, hard to see the messages. Let me just come a bit more into the shade. Got these cats coming to say hello. Ellie Wen says, never saw one become empathetic. Yeah, they're just not going to learn empathy. There has to be an incentive for them to do that. And, most people in this world, they don't have empathy like that. They don't have affective empathy or empathic concern. These traits are very rare in the world today. Most people are narcissistic. They're more self-focused. And that's how it is, because for most of mankind, I mean, we've kind of been in survival mode. We've had to just pretty much worry about ourselves in order to survive. So narcissism appears to have been an evolutionary trait to get us this far. But then in some ways, I mean, research shows that prehistoric humans were compassionate. So who knows? I mean, at this point, we find that most people tend to be more narcissistic rather than empathetic. And is that an evolutionary trait now? I don't know. I wouldn't say so. Because think about it. That's just going to keep us stuck where we are. In order for us to evolve, and if we're to colonize other planets, we have to be more compassionate. It's the only way. So what it means, when you see someone who's narcissistic, it's really like an ape or a reptile. It's someone who hasn't evolved. They haven't elevated their consciousness and awareness, because if they had, then they would be more compassionate. And thinking about it, even if narcissism was an evolutionary trait a long time ago, it wasn't as good as what being compassionate could have been. Because of course, I mean, if people work together to achieve a certain objective, it's going to be far more effective. I mean, just look at certain animals who hunt in packs. They can take down much larger animals just because there's more of them together. Now, of course, even then, I mean, what does that mean? Like if a pack of hyenas hunts down one lion, that does just mean that the hyenas are weak. And that's why they need so many of them to take them down. But that's when we're talking about predators. Now, when we're talking about people coming together and it's more revolved around love and compassion, that is strength. Because to be vulnerable, to open yourself up, that does take a lot of strength and courage. Also, of course, it's important to not be foolish, because if you make yourself vulnerable to a predator, a lion or a tiger, they're just going to rip you apart because they haven't evolved. And maybe they're not meant to make it this far. Sometimes I do wonder, why do we protect predatory animals? Just so they can go and kill so many other species. And yet at the same time, we've got so many vegans and vegetarians around the world. It does make me wonder sometimes. I mean, the amount of suffering on this world is unfathomable. 300 billion animals are killed every year for food. And that's just for humans. That doesn't include all of the other animals that are killed by other animals. There's so much suffering, and it's only because people haven't elevated their consciousness. I mean, just think about it. If you saw a wild animal come in to attack your pet cat or dog, I'm sure many of you would protect your pet at all costs. You would even kill the other animal if you had to, because it's a threat. And yet it's funny how people don't think that way towards other animals. But this is just where we're at. Now, there could be a way to reduce the suffering on the planet. But instead, what do? We protect reptiles like snakes, who feed on so many innocent, vulnerable animals every day. Eddie Wynn says they use empathy for control and transactions. Yes, narcissists, they do have a type of empathy. I mean, many of them do. They have cognitive empathy. But that's very different to affective empathy. And also there's another step above affective empathy, which is compassionate empathy, where not only do you feel empathy for other people, but also you take action. You actually do something about it. Affective empathy, that's rare enough. But compassionate empathy, that's extremely rare. So many people, they see other people suffering and in need, and they just don't do anything about it. Stormy says, I really like the short hair. I'm glad you like it, Stormy. As you may notice from my recent videos, I have just began growing it out a bit longer. But yeah. On the beach. Oh, the water's a bit cold now. It was much warmer earlier. But it's not too cold. I mean, usually when I go to the beach and I get in the sea, the water is usually very cold. Maybe because the sun's been quite strong today. Look, here I am. Narc Survivor in the sea. I don't know if I've been in the sea live before. Been on the beach, of course, many times. You've seen Narc Survivor live in the jacuzzi, but never in the sea. Look at the next one, it's a swimming pool. But yeah, I'm going to finish this one off in the sea today. Thank you all for joining me on another Narc Survivor live video. And I will talk to you all very soon.